Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. The new year is nearly here, which means we can close the door on a pretty amazing 2025 for Sunderland and look ahead to what could be an even better year in 2026. So in this video, I'm going to look at some of the best moments in 2025. I want to also know your opinions as well. What are your favourite moments? Did I miss any? And also, let's look ahead to 2026. And I'm going to, drop some of the things that I would like to see happen in 2026 and what sort of year it could be for Sunderland and Sunderland fans. So, first place to start, what were your best moments? And I'll go through some of mine, which I'll put on here. The Ballard goal against Coventry obviously comes in straight away in the brain. I think that is the most euphoric I have ever felt in a football game before. Just the way it went in, the last second of the game to win it. And I know that you win nothing by winning the semi-final. I remember Michael Gray was getting pretty, annoyed at it that Sunderland was so celebratory at the end of the game, but it was such an amazing way to win any game of football, never mind a playoff semi-final. So I think the Ballard goal has to be up there. Then, of course, we get to the playoff final and the Tommy Watson moment and Sunderland coming from, a goal down to win 2-1. We had, obviously, the VAR goal. That was an amazing moment and, kind of just in disbelief, really, that Sunderland had won the game. So that was a special moment. We then have West Ham, which was a really big moment for me because it sort of made me feel like Sunderland were sort of here again, and finally back. And we've been out the Premier League for so long. To win on the opening day 3-0 was pretty incredible. And it was just a perfect day all round. It was a sunny day. Everyone was in good spirits. The atmosphere was electric. The limbs when we scored were amazing. And that felt like a really special day and one that I think this season really possibly is my favourite memory of the season. But I've got a few more to talk about. Isidor against Brentford, last minute goal. Felt really big. We were 1-0 down with 50 minutes left and we turned it around. We win 2-1. That was a big moment in the season. And of course, we got the Woltemade goal, which, gave Sunderland the win in the Derby game, which again felt like a really big moment in our season, in our recent history as well. But if I've forgotten any moments in there, there's a few I've left out there, which, I think people will pick up on. But yeah, let me know your favourite moments of 2025. But what about your favourite forgotten moments as well? And these are sort of things that are now at the back of the mind. But Ryan Giles scoring that own goal at the Riverside sticks out to me. Someone winning that game 3-2. We got a really honking record at the Riverside. So to win that game, do the double against Middlesbrough for the first time ever, certainly in my life, that was a big, favourite moment of mine thinking back. And that game felt quite big for I mean, it wasn't in the grand scheme of things, but it felt like a really big moment for us at that point of the season. Worst moments? I'm encouraged sort of you to sort of give yours. I know we don't want to have negatives, but I think it's important to reflect on big moments. And for me, the one that really hurt the most was probably that Pascal Struijk last minute goal for Leeds. Sunderland were excellent at Elland Road that night. Obviously, we were both sort of going for promotion at the time. And it felt like a really pivotal game. And the defeat kind of changed Sunderland's tact. I think we accepted we weren't going up automatically after losing that game. We were 1-0 up. We played really well. And Leeds were able to bring on loads of top-level players for the championship and win that 2-1. And I remember when Struijk scored, I was like, oh, it was a sickening defeat. So yeah, that's probably one of my lowest points of the year. But there are other ones which I'm sure you can look at. Another one for me being losing on the final day against QPR and everyone sort of writing us off going to the playoffs and me telling myself that I think it's going to be okay, but not actually knowing and thinking, oh, have we really blown our chance of promotion? So, yeah, there's plenty of bad moments, but I think to enjoy the good moments, you've got to have the bad moments. But overall reflections of it, I think it's probably my best year supporting Sunderland, if I'm being brutally honest. At my age, the first years I can probably remember, or I kind of remember going in 99, 2000, but I was very little. Roy Keane years, 06, 07, I went to a lot of games that year, 07, 08 onwards, are very vivid in my memory. So I think in my life, supporting Sunderland, this past year has been the best. And if you told me after that QPR defeat on the final day, we'd be where we are now, with everything that goes with that, it's been pretty amazing. We're 7th in the Premier League heading into the new year. I know there's some games before New Year's Day, so we might end up lower than that. But from our perspective, on an even keel on 18 games going into the new year, we're 7th in the Premier League, which is pretty amazing. And I think as well, we've got to talk about the transfer window. Sunderland's transfer business in 2025 has just been unbelievable. The players that we've brought in, I mean, Xhaka still just blows my mind that he's a Sunderland player. What an incredible footballer he has been for us so far, and leader he has been. Then we've got, I'll just read them off the list: Mukiele, Alderete, Sadiki, Roos, Ronaldo, Geertruida, Diarra, Traore, Brobbey, Adingra, Talby, Lafay, technically Isidor as well we brought in sort of end of the last transfer window. And just unbelievable run of signings there. And I've left out like Masuaku and Gio, but they haven't played. Obviously Gio only played like one game, and Masuaku, it looks like he's on the way out. But in terms of the big signs we've made, we've pretty much hit every single one nail on the head. And if we can repeat that in 2026 and repeat that in all transfer windows, we'll be on to a winner. And we've also not lost a home game in the Premier League yet, which I think is a pretty good sign for us in 2025. So 2025, as we close the door on the year, it's just been an amazing 12 months, all things considered. But let's look ahead to 2026. And what can we realistically expect? And let me know in the comments what you think as well. Can we top 2025? I don't know. In terms of euphoric moments, I think it'll be really difficult. I mean, 2025 has had, in terms of euphoria, you'd say all 3 playoff games had euphoric moments. Absolutely, yeah. Maybe we can look at that Giles goal against Middlesbrough, felt quite euphoric at the time. And then outside of that, we've had a few in the Premier League already this season. I think signing Granit Xhaka felt like a bit of a euphoric moment as well. So we've had a lot of big moments this year. It's very difficult to top that. You'd probably have to, do well in the cup competition, reach a final to do that, or somehow get into Europe. And that would be probably the way we top 2025. But certainly in terms of moments, it would be very difficult to do that. This season, the last 20 games of the campaign, what can we realistically expect? And I think Sunderland have a realistic shot of finishing in the top 10 this season. I think most people probably agree with that. I think if you have a realistic chance of finishing in the top 10, you probably also have a realistic chance of getting into Europe, considering how compact the Premier League is this season. I hope, though, that if it does come off the boil a little bit for Sunderland and we end up finishing sort of in mid-table, lower mid-table, people aren't going to be too upset, because I think that would still be a hell of an achievement. We all would have pretty much took 17th at the start of the season. If we finished 13th, 14th, 15th, it's still been a really good year for Sunderland and given us a really solid building block. And that was the most important thing this year. And one of the takeaways I've seen from our draw with Leeds and seeing a lot of the content from the Leeds side is they're absolutely buzzing to have 20 points from 18 games. We've got 28 points from 18 games. So context, it's been an amazing start of the season. We're probably, not really going to be in relegation trouble this season. So we have to take a lot of pride in that. And I think we can push for top 10, which means we could be in the hunt for Europe. If we get into Europe, and this is thinking very, very far ahead and very, optimistically, but hey, this is a video where we're talking about our hopes and dreams for the next 12 months. We'd have to think about our squad size and squad depth. We'd have to have another unbelievable bit of transfer recruitment in there as well in the summer. How much money will we spend? That's another big one. Sunderland going to spend drop another 100 million. Will we sell a big player? It's possible that, we know that teams are sniffing around players like Noah Sadiki already. It's possible that Sunderland do have to sell a big player to then recruit more, but we trust the recruitment here that we can do that, and that's kind of been the model anyway. So what will we look like? What will the money go into? Will we sign players in January even, or will we, try and save the budget for the summer because we've done so well? We know that the ownership wants to target a top 10, so that would suggest that we probably are going to recruit in January. So there's lots of things to look ahead to in 2026. Can we keep the unbeaten home record? Well, that's going probably against Man City, isn't it, on New Year's Day? Most people will probably predict that. But if we can get something against Man City, we've probably played our hardest home games of the season. So, yeah, it's a big ask to go undefeated for a whole campaign, obviously, at home. But it'll be interesting to see whether or not we can do that. So there's lots of big questions heading into 2026, but they're all positive ones, which is good. So give me your expectations for what you want in 2026. Now I'll just list off 4 here that I kind of hope happen. And the first one is we finish this season in the top 10 and then start next season in similar, form. The worst thing that we could do would be like survive the season comfortably and then next year be embroiled in a relegation battle. We want to establish ourselves in the Premier League. And from what we've seen this season, we have began to do that pretty well. We have established ourselves as a decent Premier League team as we stand today, as I record this on the 30th of December. That's where we are right now. as a football team. And next season, you want to make sure that you're doing that again. We want to be strong at home and continue those, positive traits that we've seen this season. We also, I hope we get the transfer win, as you always would, but, get a transfer window spot on and address some of the flaws in this team. I think we'd all admit that we're defensively pretty good. We love the goalkeeper and defence in midfield. Creatively, we've not been amazing. Goal scoring is becoming more and more of an issue. We need to address that in terms of our recruitment. Now, whether or not signing new strikers, new wingers, new creative midfielders, I don't know. But that's what I kind of hope to see in the next couple of transfer windows for Sunderland, is that we do address some of the issues we have in terms of creativity this season, or we solve it within the group. That would also be good as well. The next thing I hope is that Regis is still heading up the first team. He's still here and he's not had his head turned. He seems like a pretty loyal guy. I don't feel like there's any real threat of him leaving the football club, but he feels pretty integral to us right now, and his astuteness tactically and his coaching seems to be up there with some of the best in the Premier League. So you really hope that he sticks around for Sunderland. But look, this is a big club. I look at teams like Fulham, Bournemouth, in Brentford. Brentford will keep on Thomas Frank for years. We're a far bigger club than all of them. No disrespect to them, but that's just the facts of the matter. So I'd hope Regis would be happy to stay at Sunderland and not be tempted by a potentially bigger club. Because to be fair, there isn't really that many bigger clubs than Sunderland in the Premier League until you get to like the teams that are in, the top 4 or 5 every single season. And the last thing I want to see happen is just that the stadium like continues to be a fortress, and we as a fan base continue to make an intimidating place to play. Because often what happens is, year 1, the stadium's a fortress, and then year 2, it's a little bit of a fortress still. Then year 3, everything becomes normal again, and suddenly when you're playing, a bog standard Premier League game, it becomes quite normal, and therefore people struggle to get themselves up in terms of the atmosphere. And I know that that's happened a lot for our friends up the road, Newcastle, because I've got friends who support them who say the atmosphere there is terrible at the moment, and that's because it's becoming more normal for them to be playing Premier League games, and there's more of an expectation there. Whereas right now for us, every Premier League game feels like a pretty big event, and therefore everyone gets up for it, and the atmosphere is bouncing. So those are the things I kind of hope happen. But yeah, it's been a really, really good 2025. Hopefully 2026 continues in the same vein, and hopefully Sunderland continue to establish themselves in the Premier League and prove themselves to be a threat, and yeah, it's just been a good year. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks everyone for supporting the channel this year. It's probably the last video I am going to put out in 2025. And the channel's done really well. We started in August, and in that time, it might be the end of July, early August, but yeah, and in that time we built 2,500 subscribers. I'm doing regular videos with TAF, alt ending, and they're doing really, really well. I'm just happy with the direction of the channel. If people have anything that they want to see on here, I've toyed with doing more live streams. Then I've also had feedback from some people that there's too much content. And yeah, so if you let me know kind of what you want to see from the channel, and if there's anything we want to add in. I was doing interviews with like journalists and stuff. I kind of stopped doing that because we were doing things with TAF, and I sort of thought that that was a bit of an overload in terms of long form content. But maybe we could bring one of them in a week, and I can speak to some of my friends in the media and see if they'd be happy, occasionally coming along and, giving their point of view. I'm just not sure what exactly people want to see, and I'm very conscious that there's so much content out there. I don't want to get, produce stuff for the sake of producing stuff, but also I like putting content out. I think in an ideal world for me, I'd love to put out 1 video a day. That is kind of the dream. I think as we get into transfer windows, particularly the summer window, I think we'll really ramp up content around transfers and what to expect. But from now at the end of the season, let me know what you think. What do you want to see? How much more video content do you want to see from me? Do you want to see less? Maybe you're sick of seeing my face all the time. Yeah, let me know. And just thanks again for watching, and I hope that you continue to watch and support the channel heading into the new year.